for leniency. Justice Ojukwu subsequently sentenced Donye Kukbe to 2 years imprisonment on count 34 with an option of a fine of 500,000 naira. The court also sentenced him to 2 years imprisonment on count 35 to 59 with an option of fine of 500,000 naira. The court noted that it refrained from making any custodial order, but the convict is the property of the state.
The sentence should run concurrently, and in the alternative, that it should pay 500,000 naira each in each of the count for 26 count charge in which he was found guilty of collecting money in excess of 5 million. And the court has said that he has up to 4:30 this afternoon to sort out himself by way of paying the fine, if he can. But if he cannot pay it, then he will now be taken to Kuje prison.
Corruption, what is different? What is corruption? Is it not corruption? That money that you are not entitled to, you will go and be collecting it without even minding that that money was in excess of the money, the amount allowed by law. Is that not corruption? So he has been convicted, and then if by the time we get the judgment proper, we will still study the judgment and look at the other counts that he was discharged and acquitted.
Mr. Kukwe is currently the Director General of the Campaign Council and Financial Recklessness. He was, however, reinstated by the National Secretary of the party. Celestina Iria, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, we're talking about money laundering and the war against corruption this morning. My guest is Malaki Ogumadu, who's a constitutional lawyer and former president of the CDHR. Good morning, and thank you so much for finding time to come.
Compliments of the season.
I wish you the same.
To be here.
Absolutely. So I'd like us to begin with the contradiction with this debate. So I just told you about the EFCC saying it's done fantastically well in the number of convictions it's been able to secure in the past 1 year. You also had Mr. Bauer saying that they have recovered 30 billion from the suspended Accountant General of the Federation. There are a lot of news as well, but on the contrary, there are still other damning reports that tells us that Nigeria still rates very high in the issue of money laundering and terror financing risks. Which of these reports do you believe?
Well, the two should be taken, perhaps with a pinch of salt. The reason for that is that the masquerade is dancing and assessing itself. The victims of the ferocity of his dance are also assessing the situation. And I'm talking of the victims of corruption in Nigeria. Those who are, whose lot and fortunes are clearly defined by that which has become almost a culture and institutionalized in our system. They want to see a drastic departure from what it has always been. They want to, not just their future, but that of their children, to be able to heave a sigh of relief, as it is at the moment. It is gratifying to hear from the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crime Commission that they have done so much, and in relation to what the commission as an institution had done from inception, that is even huge. I guess that the challenge is that we have traveled so far in the woods and become not just accustomed, but immune to the direct implication of corruption, so much so that the general corrupt index assessment by independent organizations and institutions have not, taken us out of that bracket. But I think that what is clear is that the fight is on. It is on, perhaps not at the maximum level.
So it looks like we're doing more, but it's like the corruption itself is still more.
Clearly, what is not disputable is that we have traveled so far in the woods. I mean, it got to the point where even in critical environments and segments, I had the misfortune of delivering a lecture in one of the ivory towers in this country. And the students who were supposed to know came up with a position that clearly establishes that they have seen corruption as part of us. And that the discussions around it is to just understand the ramifications, but not that it should stop.
Yeah.
So those are students who are supposed to be idealistic and lean towards the ideals of society. But they have thrown their hands up in heaven in defeat, accepting that whereas they may hear the ills about corruption, that it is clearly a way of life in Nigeria. I think that is where the challenge lies, so much so that what we might need to do is not just to scale, raise the bars and intensify the effort. It is to find a way, creative at that, to let the people own this fight. At the moment, it's still a sing-song in the ears of so many people. I'm talking of where it becomes part of individual fight to rid corruption in our society, and it can be done. But before it is done, there must be clear indication that that is the policy trust, that is the direction we are headed, and that is where we desire to go.
There's, however, the challenge of the political coloration and bias that come with it. For instance, the latest report we just showed, the accused is saying it's the work of his enemies. Some people have a political coloration to it, that this is the incumbent government gunning down the campaign DG of a rising political party ahead the general election. But this kick-started in 2019. That's over 2 years. I'd like us to talk about the Money Laundering Act itself, because the president signed the 2022 version into law earlier this year. I think primarily, an individual cannot receive the sum above 5 million naira, and for organization, 10 million naira, without passing through a financial institution. I'd like us to talk about the corruption in it, because in this particular case, it's not about what the money was used for, it's about how the money was received. Is this something that everybody knows about, and how important it is, is it in the fight against corruption in Nigeria?
Well, your question is already loaded, but let's take it seriatim from where you started. It is that there is a political coloration. This is a political season. If it had come a week to the elections, it will still be political, it will still have political colorations. But the issues are, were they identified criminal infractions? Yes, they were. Were they body of evidence to prove the elements of those criminal infractions? The court says yes. Has the person in question, did he therefore plead what we call a locutus to reduce it? Yes, he did. Does he have a right of appeal? Certainly, it's still available to him, and I imagine that he might want to exploit. At the end of the day, what you will be interested in is, this is a criminal trial. It didn't end in the media. It went to court. By the time the court concludes what we call trial, and then adjourns for judgment, usually the court requires that it should not exceed 90 days. From the end of address, that is when trial ended, and when the court is addressed, in law we say final written addresses on the two positions. It should not exceed 90 days before you deliver. In short, if it's going to exceed 90 days, either the court or the parties involved through their counsel is expected to remind the court that, please, we have exceeded the 90 days constitutionally provided time limit. Within quick judgment ought to be given. If you fail to do that, it becomes one of the grounds of appeal. But this is too technical to dig into any further. What is to be taken is that if that time fell within the election period, it's neither here nor there to argue whether, in any case, this didn't start. In short, he wasn't the DG when this trial started.
You are familiar with court process.
Yes.
Is it possible that the judgment was expedited because of elections?
Oh, well, well, there is a law.
In order to indict the Labour Party?
Well, these are extrapolations that you cannot take away from the table, but there is a law that has come into effect, in short, signed by the government he served. I'm talking of Jonathan. It was a patent gift, which President Jonathan signed on the 13th of May, 2015. It is known as the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. That act demands daily trials with respect to criminal matters. It puts an end to frivolous adjournments and limits it to 5 maximum. Even if the matter is to drag more than 5 or 10 years, it must not exceed 5. It calls for daily trial and a lot of other innovations to guarantee speedy dispensation of justice. That law is still an extant law and operational in our criminal jurisprudence. So whether advantage of the law has been taken now, or indeed the matter was already ripe for judgment, the facts and the records of the court and the proceedings of the courts will show that clearly. You cannot completely take away these political innuendos and insinuations. You cannot. However, you must turn back and return to those initial questions I asked. And I like to go to your next point, which is, we've talked about, you raised the point about whether it has political corruption, whether this is sufficient to tackle the magnitude of the corruption. Well, what we have seen so far is that it's not only bribery and corruption, or stealing, direct stealing from the tilt of public funds that constitute corruption. We have so soon come across all the forms and ramifications of corruption, including money laundering. And that is where you acquire illicit funds and take it through a process that turns it out as if it is a legitimately earned funds. So what does the law say? What does the society say through the law? The society is saying, given the propensity of our people and the drive for primitive accumulation, which has subjected the majority of Nigerians to very excruciating hardship, we have found that what obtains is that people in the corridors of power constitute themselves into distribution agencies and dispense money in cash as though there are no regulations and no better ways of doing it. Therefore, if you as an individual will have to receive or accept or give money in excess of 5 million, please do it through the financial institution, and that's the bank.
Let me try to bring in another guest on the program who's also been involved in advocacy campaign for years, and his activities have entailed promotion of accountability and transparency in governance. Larry Suraj is Chairman, Human and Environmental Development Agenda. Thank you for joining us this morning. Mr. Suraj.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. So I'm sure that you'll follow this conversation through in the past 15 minutes thereabout. I just would like you to continue from addressing the many issues that have, come up. Do you consider that the Okupe sentence is a slap on the wrist? I'm not sure he got the maximum sentence. It would seem that there are varying degrees to money laundering, as it were.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I would want to also salute my brother there for giving that very clear and also, guiding light to the stages and also the position of the law, especially with the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, that has actually also many times been observed in breach by both the judicial officers, looking at our judges, and many times both the defense and prosecuting counsels in terms of failing to limit the adjournment issues to, just like he said, 5 adjournments, and sometimes they deliberately even give adjournment that takes more than even sometimes close to a year or more than a year, including the Supreme Court in Nigeria. But when you look at the judge and the decision, I think the judge has done to a very large extent a disservice to the country. Also, the unfortunate situation that is also repeating what we have, like the John Yakubu case, who was given 6 months imprisonment or the payment of paltry amount of money to easily escape the sentencing by just even paying the money before leaving the court. And the same thing happened to the former governor of Edo State, Lucky Binedion, who was also treated in the same manner, having been charged with billions of naira in corruption and money laundering. And this is the same situation where someone is being charged with about 702 million naira corruption, money laundering, and also abuse of office. And what you, the 15 million naira.
And I think it's 13 million, Mr. Suraj.
Yeah, 13 million. Sorry. This is even not going to cover the cost of EFCC in that case over the years. At the end of the day, the country continues to lose. So ultimately, the country is lost more than 900 or close to $1 billion naira on this case. Even the cost of the time of the judge to sit even in the court, the cost of the court services and the payment of the judge's salary is not covered with this kind of, sentencing and the judgment that has just been delivered. And I think the judiciary needs to be very seriously sensitive to the situation of the country. Otherwise, we are not going to have even resources sufficient enough to adequately treat our judges in the way that will be commensurate with international standard. If the judiciary and the judges would allow political and even bureaucrat officers to escape with this kind of corruption, this does nothing other than encouraging corruption within the system. This also encourages impunity. So if someone is sure he can afford to steal the kind of amount of money that is attributed, so we should be expecting with the over 30 billion recovered from Idris Ahmed, with the allegation that he's been involved in over 180 billion naira corruption and ACE. If he's sentenced, he would just be asked to pay 1 billion naira, or you would go to jail for 2 years or 3 years. And that would just be paid by these characters because they still have the huge.
I hear you, Mr. Suraj. You are noting that the country is spending tens of millions of naira that it would have been spent on infrastructure to investigate and prosecute corrupt politicians. But then the best we also get here, like he has mentioned, is that only a fraction of this corruption money is asked to be paid as fine. And then you heard his family member also plead leniency, talk about his old age, his sicknesses, and the fact that what was done in error. I'd like us to speak to how fair the criminal justice system is. Some would say it favors the rich, because if it was someone who didn't have as much name and as much money, perhaps such an individual would be rotting behind the jails. I mean, awaiting trial for many years. What's the implication of this on the war on corruption? I mean, the war against corruption in Nigeria?
Your question takes us to an aspect of jurisprudence that we cannot completely dissect here. However, it is important to take advantage of that question to insist, perhaps given where some of us are coming from, that the law itself has proved to be tilted more in favor of the ruling class as against the masses. What it does is to contrive situations in a way that enables the rich, the powerful, to escape the long arms of the law much more easily than it is possible with the poor. Speaking realistically now. But the good news here is that incrementally, I know that this is precisely not what the Nigerian people want or what Nigeria itself deserves. Incrementally, the society is showing its resentment to acts of corruption. Have we managed to utilize this number of cases to address the challenge of corruption that we have in our country? Certainly, it is like a drop in the ocean. Does it, the successes we have recorded, has it approximated a kind of milestone enough to drive the message in the consciousness of our people that this is not the route to travel? I don't think so. So if you talk about the implication, taking advantage of some of these cases, and I like to thank Comrade Suraj for reading out these. It's a long trajectory we've had, from the Buhari to even the, is it Auditor General?
The
Accountant General. If you take a look at what is alleged to have taken and what is recovered, I think Nigerians would have been better served if they were not told. Meanwhile, it has taken the commission, talking of EFCC now, so much to even recover that. Even the law has developed where you now have civil forfeitures. In other words, you don't need to travel the whole route of criminal investigation, trial, conviction, sentencing before you forfeit proceeds of crime. There are other means through civil engagement where you can also recover some of those goods. So all of those are in place. But like I keep saying, we went too far that you need a surgical, very radical and urgent, which is precisely why when we see the gladiators...
When you say radical and urgent, I don't think that the judiciary has the capacity to make that happen. I mean, for instance, this case has been on since 2019. It even loses its steam.
Let me help you.
When the prosecution takes so long.
If you are concerned about the present dispensation in the judiciary, well, you could be excused. But there are moments in this country when we have the tribes of Justice Oputa, Kayode Esho, Aniagolo, so many. They call it the golden age of the Supreme Court. You could see that these were law lords who were bent on savaging the country using the instrumentalities of the law. And they were seen as activist lawyers who were not just, who did not just subscribe to the positivist perception of law or ideology of the law. They didn't just see the law as it is. They saw the law as it ought to be, given the peculiar circumstances of the society they find. And that is when it becomes necessary. That is when it becomes relevant. If the law is unable to solve the problem of the society and advance it from point A to point B, then we have just created yet another bureaucracy and system of civilized behavior that does not take us
anywhere. I hear you, Mr. Gumadu. Mr. Suraj, just before we go on break, I'd like you to speak to the logic and the public perception to this particular case. You highlighted earlier about the amount of money that have been spent during the time of prosecution versus how much fine that the former aide to the former president was given. I also want you to now put into consideration what the public perception is. So you hear people say, oh, it's a political vendetta. It's because he's a campaign director of a particular political party. You ask yourself, to what end? What has the EFCC achieved here? Mr. Suraj, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Did you get the question?
Okay. Yes, I got the question. I think this is actually one of the most disservice that quite a number of these, I think, advocates of, let it just be, and those who would want to say, when it is my thief, it is not a thief, or those that would want to conclude that, oh, why not catch your own thief before the other? One of the greatest disservice that would be done to both the country, to the judiciary, and even to the law enforcement agencies is to come to this conclusion. I can remember that the charges against Okupe was filed as far back as December 2018. In court. This was at a time when he was still a PDP person. This was at a time when there was nothing that could be called Labour Party and Peter Obi as at the time that he was in court. And the moment that the cases get to court, I think this is the level of education that we would actually need to use the media to also assist some of these people to understand. The moment that the case gets out of court, into court, it is solely in the hands of the judiciary, many times to determine the length of the prosecution and trial. It is not in the hands of either the executive or even the legislature anymore, except after they have before they could do before filing the charges, or the law that the legislature would have passed in terms of, the administration of the trial and the rest of that. For some people to use that as a basis of defense, not just for the corrupt in the system. Are they saying that Okupe did not steal the money again, or that Okupe was not guilty of the crime? So people are not bothered about the offense anymore. They are only bothered about the pecuniary personal benefit that is associated with either their candidate or their party. And for that reason, people who have sinned in the past, because he's the campaign director for Peter Obi or for Atiku or for Showore or for any other party, and for that reason, they should not actually stand trial to answer for their crime. And I think this is most unfortunate. And I think the media should not just also give it as much as we can, not give it any form of relevance, but to rather educate the people that we can't actually get out of the current debacle if we continue in that kind of trajectory and narrative. The fact of the matter is, he who must have sinned in the past should answer for your sin, no matter who you belong. And the people who are associated with Buhari now should also be made to answer for the atrocities that will be committed between 2015 and 2023 when they will be leaving office. And it doesn't matter if they either join the ruling government or they form opposition. We can't afford to allow people deceive the system. Still now, when you're here, and the moment you are brought to book, you run to opposition and then claim persecution. I don't see any justification and any reason to start discussing, this very mundane and pedantic issue.
I get your point. We're going to take a short break now. When we return, we'll turn our attention to the Money Laundering Act of 2022 and see if there's anything in there that gives us hope that will help Nigeria solve this huge challenge. You can call in for your contribution and also use the hashtag ThisMorningTVC on Twitter. Stay with us.
In the month of December, on the 1st, it is World AIDS Day. On the 3rd, attention shifts to persons living with disabilities. And December 9th is dedicated to International Anti-Corruption Day. 10th is Human Rights Day, while the 11th is the 2nd anniversary of the abduction of over 300 students in Kankara, Katsina State. On the 12th of December, the World Health Organization dedicates the day as Universal Health Coverage Day. On the 17th of December, the abducted Kankara boys were freed 6 days after. 18th of December is set aside as International Migrants Day. It is the last month of the year. Brace yourself for an interesting December. Stay with TVC News.
Every major news story is with many perspectives and layered with different levels of impact.
Hello. What time did this happen?
TVC News. First with breaking news.
Money laundering and war against corruption is our discussion on the program today, and I'm joined by Malaki Ogumadu and Larry Suraj. Thank you, gentlemen, for staying the course on the program this morning. I recall that we had a conversation with Professor Isse Sage as at the time that the president was assenting to the Money Laundering Act, the Money Laundering Bill of 2022, and he was quite optimistic about it, that this new law covers institutions and measures not included in the previous 2011 Act. I'm told we have a call. Reverend Dominic has called in. Good morning, Reverend Dominic.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to our guest, Mr. Ogumad, my brother, my friend.
Good morning, Reverend.
Yeah. Barrister, listen to me. If this judgment has come around 2014 or 2015, 2016, I will be excited. But I'm not more excited about the judgment of corruption in Nigeria today. You know what I mean? From 1999 to 2014, we have a challenge of corruption. When Buhari came with the mantra of corruption, in my pulpit, as an influential person, as a leader in my own standard, I had to convince the church to leave what they call Christian president, to vote for a Muslim president, because I believe it could fight corruption to stand still. But this government has made corruption worse from our history. How do I mean? So quote me well. There's two persons they put in prison, and we say this hurrah. It's a new day. That's John Yame and direct in prison. This government came into power of corruption mantra. Release them to go home. I listened one of them insulting all of us as Nigerians that they don't do nothing. That process took almost 10, 13 years. And then nobody said that they did not commit crime, but we give them amnesty. In a government that speaks of anti-corruption, this government has made everything worse. And I paid me a lot. Why should a man who steals Nigerian money pay fine? And the person who steals corn, recharge card, got in prison. What a nation is like that? Injustice is the power of this nation to destroy it. Why could a young man who eats so right to eat, got in prison, and the person who deprived the whole nation money, go home with 30 million? What a nation. This government have done worse. And I don't know how we like it. Everybody who talks about the Labour Party, it doesn't mean well for Nigeria. Whether you're a Labour Party, whether you're a Reverend Dominic, when you come and you pay for it. So somebody else will come in tomorrow. God bless you and God bless you, TVC. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Dominic, for your contribution. So the highlight of this new act is saying that it criminalizes the operation of numbered accounts, and now financial institutions are mandated to report certain transactions and confirm the beneficial owners before opening such accounts. How optimistic are you? For instance, there's now a new unit in the AFCC that majors on money laundering. How optimistic are you that this new law will perhaps do better than the previous one?
Well, to continue to put all your faith in the legislation is to show how naive you are in the kind of system that we have all constructed for ourselves. What is by far more important than the pieces of legislation is the will of the drivers of the polity to rid Nigeria of corruption. And that dovetails into Reverend's concern. You know, you can imagine the anguish that Reverend suffers. I mean, and it's not alone for somebody who preached and tried to persuade his congregation and people within his space to vote for the candidates of the ruling political power, considering that as at then he had all it takes to wipe out corruption in our society. Now, That was the wish. He hoped, now against hopes, and now you are talking of just legislation. You have always heard that our problem is not legislation.
Let me hold you for another minute. Okurafa has called in from Arochukwu in Abia State. Good morning, Mazi.
Good morning. Good morning, Nifende. Good morning, San Malake.
Arochukwu.
You see, Malake, look, let us face the reality of life. Money laundering, our judicial system, EFCC, other intelligence, ICPC, the judges, and our lawyers. I see no reason why a case, either a suspect of criminality or money laundering, whatever we call it, should be lingering in our court for over 6 months. Malake, my brother Nifemi, let us look at Kenya. When the judicial system came on board in terms of the election, how many days does it take? It didn't last up to 2 weeks. They dismissed the case. Why is it in Nigeria? Upon the whole law school we have, upon the professors of law we have, all the science and the judicial system we have now, the judges and they'll be lingering that they'll go to the lawyers will come and adjust. It doesn't make sense. At the level that we have reached now, when a case, whether money laundering, anything you may call it, should not last more than 1 month. But in Nigeria, it doesn't mean that we are still going on analog judgment system or digital judgment. I don't do that because we are making everything. We rubbish everything in this country. Because I think, to me, I'll tell him to resign or step aside or throw him in store. But you see, on your other people are there. Honestly, when we talk about the laundry or no laundry, our judicial system, they have just messed up the whole judicial system, everything from Tom, Dick, and Harry. Look, we have to be very careful because the way we are making our judicial system is no longer healthy. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for your contribution. You're saying that having filings is very different from the implementation, right?
Yes. So, and all of these are playing out in a way that enables us, now this time around, to remain extremely circumspect from all angles. And then those who think that it is just a problem of the judiciary and the legal profession are just hiding behind their fingers. It is a societal problem. It has become systemic. And if you don't watch it carefully, it has become existential. Because like I do say, and I think I have mentioned it even on this platform, the notion of justice, which we cherish so dearly, is rooted in confidence. And that confidence is not lost when you lose a case or win a case, as we have seen in this instance. It disappears, it evaporates when the public, and the public is the man on the street, loses faith, loses confidence in what is happening in the judiciary. We must not and cannot afford to get to that point. At that point, you're already looking at the last bus stop before anarchy. And you don't extract it. You don't tell people what they will believe in. You must ensure that justice is not just done, it is seen to be done. Otherwise, the people will lose confidence.
Comrade Suraj, it's important that we begin to drive this home and begin to ask the question of what way forward. Because one caller did say an administration campaign on the platform of fighting corruption. You also want to ask yourself the question, what could he have done differently? And I'm making reference to the Buhari, to President Muhammadu Buhari. The judiciary expected to be independent. We've seen EFCC prosecute as many cases, over 3,000 convictions alone this year, more than the commission has had since its inception to 2020. What is the way forward? What could have been done differently to salvage the situation?
I think it is very critical, and I would want to start from where my brother Malaki landed. Apologies, my brother, for some of you that we know in the judiciary and also legal profession. We can always hold forth for you, but for some of, especially particularly senior lawyers and some of the judges, they have actually constituted themselves into the clog in the wheel of speedy dispensation of justice, and especially when it comes to the cases and issues of corruption. I would give you a very simple, lucid example. Just like Mazi Okorafor said, it is extremely difficult for you to have this speedy dispensation of justice when the first thing that lawyers will do at the moment a suspect is charged to court, especially high-profile corruption cases, the next and the first thing is to go and seek for bail for such suspect. And at that point, the only next level, and we must come to this realization without deceiving ourselves, to say that, we would get, speedy justice when the suspect is actually enjoying his freedom, is also spending some of the proceeds of crime. Take two examples, very simple, straight. Moffat, who is suspected for money laundering charges, was arrested in Nigeria. And you can see how senior lawyers bombarded the court until he was granted bail. This other guy, Hush Puppy, was arrested in the United States for the same money laundering, cyber crime offenses. He is standing trial while he's in jail. Now the process is going. Monfa has disappeared from Nigeria. He's not even anywhere near trial because he was granted bail and he has escaped.
Comrade, please hold that thought for a minute. Just hold that thought for a minute. I'd like to take this call very quickly and then I'll return to you. George has called in from Ikeja. Mr. George, are you still there?
Yes, please. Good morning, and good morning to Malaki and Mr. Suraj as well.
Good morning, George.
Malaki, please, it is you I would like to ask this question. The Administration of Criminal Justice Act, why is it that the judiciary it seems the judiciary is not interested in using it as it was designed? Because you are to try cases consecutively, and adjournment should not be more than 2 weeks, if I'm correct. But that's not what we are seeing. The point I'm trying to make is that corruption is a large entity. It's not only the executive that is affected or the legislators. The judiciary itself must check itself. What are they doing to check themselves? Malaki, let's look at what is going on now. During this election period, you see judges saying candidate ABC is not qualified to contest. The candidate goes to court, and the appeal court says he is qualified. Another court will come and say he's not qualified. It looks like a business in the judiciary. I think if the judiciary is to live up to expectation, it should first of all purge itself. Because whatever happens in the other arms, everybody resorts to the judiciary. If the corruption is to be fought, the judiciary must first be sanitized. And I want to hear from you as a critical stakeholder in that industry. Please, what do we do? What are you doing within yourself to ensure that we can run to you, being sure that we'll get justice?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So you will answer that just after the coverage. So you are saying that you were talking about the culpability of senior lawyers. I would rather also think that, what do you expect them to do? They couldn't have done anything outside the law. In this crime, a suspect is presumed innocent until proven otherwise. There must have been a loophole that they are taking advantage of.
No, there's really no loophole in the law. It is just in the system. And when they say the suspect is innocent, it is about because lawyers are not just there to go and defend criminals and make them escape from justice. The first primary responsibility of a judicial officer is to ensure that justice is done, and like Malaki said, not only just done, but seen to have been done. And even if you're suspect, your client is whoever in the society, you have your conscience and you have the oath that you swear to uphold truth and justice. And at that point, you can only go to the court to admit the guilt of your client and plead for clemency. That is not the situation of what we have in Nigeria. The situation is just to make every criminal escape the long arm of justice. That is usually the primary purpose of the defense lawyers. And the moment we are in that situation, let us not moralize, this practice of saying the suspect is innocent.
I'm just wondering how reliable it will be to count on the conscience of lawyers. I mean, there are quite a number of them.
It is extremely.
If there's no standard law, if there's no standard framework of law that they must abide with, asking that they go by their conscience will be very tall order, don't you think?
Let me, if you don't.
No, it is. That is just like what the last caller said. Malaki said there are 5 adjournments. It must not be more than 2 weeks. And like I also said, you see adjournment even by the Supreme Court against even the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, giving adjournment of several months. And this we cannot. There's no amount of law that will change the system. It is we, the people. And as long as the rot permeates and pervades and persist in the system, we shouldn't continue.
I hear you, Comrade Suraj. We are running out of time now, and also would love to hear from the lawyer before we go. But let's hear from who's on the line.
Nifemi, good morning.
Oh, Yakub has called in from Dokpemo. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Reverend Dominic and then Mr. George. I just want to ask Mr. Malak a question here. You see, within our law, that a big high-profile corruption case should pay fine. And then if you look at what Mr. Suraj said earlier, how much did we spend to prosecuting this case? At the end of the day, we now tell the person to pay some certain amount of money instead of going to serve the time in jail, even to recover all the money. Because I don't see it as a winning case for us as a Nigerian as a whole. If somebody take out such amount of money that's not supposed to use for infrastructure, that taking a lot of people's lives, driving all the way from Lagos to Ibadan at that time when the road was bad, and then the same person now, they are not tell the person to pay some certain amount and go free. I don't know, maybe it's in parameter of our law that a big high-profile case like that should pay money, and then some people that does not even thief a damn. In fact, some of them are rotting in jail now. They don't have access to even lawyer. Please, Mr. Malak, say something to this. Thank you.
Suddenly you have become a defense counsel. Now you have to defend
I'm very clearly on the spot now, and I can understand that. Again, I share their sentiment. If anything, I am with them. And so you need to understand that the law as a practice has been contrived to strike a balance between the society and the class that it has structured itself into. So you now begin to perceive a situation in which it appears the law is leaning more on the side of that class. The problem is, how are you able to hold on to this law, which has proved to be the best way of dispute resolution in any civilized society? Otherwise, you'll be advocating for a resort to self-help.
Anarchy.
How do you, in the face of what has become clear, how do you sustain what the law should be in the society? I think that is the challenge. Now, you talk about speedy trials. You talk about convictions as deterrent, as a measure of deterrent. It appears the way we are applying the law, it is not working. Because those who steal billions come out to pay a pittance, they will continue.
And they continue with their business. They don't resign. It doesn't affect their chances at the poll.
So whether we like it or not, it falls back to the judicial officer. I'm not talking of the legal practitioners. The legal practitioners are doing what they need to do to defend. That is what they are trained to do. The judge, in law you say, he is litus dominus. He is in control of his court. So whoever it is, however powerful, that wants to derail what the set objectives of the law is, that person must be reined in. My brother Surai talks about those who don't come out from prison. You see, there are certain applications you make over there, including the James Ibori case. You will be derobed. We have not gotten to that stage here.
We have to go now.
Well, my parting shot will be that the consciousness should grow even higher than it is now.
Indeed.
The society must turn the searchlight in the judiciary. But this party that prides itself as one that has come to do something differently must find a way of dealing with the image that has been created by this condition.
Well, we heard that they're having a meeting. We'll see the decision they make thereafter. Afterwards this conviction. Malaki Ogumadu, constitutional lawyer, thank you so much for talking to us on the program this morning. Larry Surratt joined us virtually, Chairman, Human Environmental Development Agenda. I hope that the next time you'll be in the studio.
Larry, congratulations on your anti-corruption cases you just published. I watched it.
Is Mr. Surratt still there?
Thank you. Yes, I'm still there.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. A big thank you to everyone who's also been a part of the program this morning. That's our time. We'll be back tomorrow with more. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Thank you for joining us.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV.
Struggling with energetic kids and you can't get them to get to sleep? Tried so many things to get them to snooze, but nothing seems to work. ShopX TV is proud to introduce an amazing gift for the kids. Introducing Happy Nappers.
They are happy, happy nappers. They love to sleep and play with you.
The perfect play pillows that pull open to a sleepy sack surprise. Who are the happiest nappers of all? Happy Nappers! They are more than just play pillows. They are comfy sleep sacks that keep your kids warm and wrapped safely in their favorite play characters, day or night. With a simple pull and zip, your child can snuggle up and nap inside of it. Imagine children that actually want to take a nap. They are your go-anywhere friends. They play with you all day, and when it's time to sleep, you just pull on their feet. Sleepy time, playtime, anytime is happy napper time. And when the napping is done, they fold back in for even more fun. Ordinary play pillows or blankets are not as much fun, and they don't hold the heat in, unlike happy nappers. And the sleep sacks are completely enclosed to keep your child warm and cozy during nap time or even through the night.
Toluwani absolutely loves her Happy Napper kitty cat. It's pink, girly, and fluffy. Everything that she loves. Well, I love it because it's a 2-in-1. She can play with it all day, and when she's tired, she can take a nap in it.
Sultana loves his Happy Nappers Grey Shark. He loves playing with it and has real adventures with the shark. It's been really hard for him to sleep recently, but thanks to his Happy Napper Shark, he finds it so easy to sleep all through the night. And to be honest, it's simply easier for me too as well.
Happy Nappers is now available in Nigeria exclusively from ShopX TV. You can choose from Pink Cat, Grey Shark, White Unicorn, and even a Pink Unicorn. Don't forget, Happy Nappers comes with the ShopX TV's 30-day money-back guarantee. Happy Nappers are a great gift for any child and come in medium and large sizes. Why not put some fun into your child's Christmas and get the ShopX Medium Happy Napper for 49,950 Naira and the large Happy Napper for 69,950 Naira only. Call the number on your screen now or visit our website at www.shopxtv.com to order yours now. And that's not all. If you order now, we will deliver to your door with no delivery charge. But hurry, limited stock available, so call now while stock lasts.
The preceding was a paid presentation by ShopX TV.
Kano State is not just the commercial capital of northern Nigeria. It is the seat of an ancient kingdom that has thrived for more than 1,000 years. It's home to people with a proud and glorious heritage, a dynamic and thriving state. Let's take you on a weekly ride through Kano to see how Governor Abdullahi Ganduje is making steady strides through infrastructure development, education reform, quality and affordable healthcare, urban rejuvenation, human capital development, and more. Kano Spotlight, Friday, 9:30 p.m. on TVC News.
Every 1 hour, 86 migrants enter Lagos State. It is a beehive of activities. Every second counts in this city that never goes to sleep. There is always something to talk about. We go the extra mile to tell the story of Africa's 5th largest economy. We track happenings on land, on waterways, and in the air. We go against all odds to ensure that you are heard.
25% of the entire spread of Lagos is covered with water.
I'm Adedoja Salamageni. I live in Lagos.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news.
You're watching the Midday News on TVC. I am Mike Okwache. Now we begin the news in Zamfara State, where 2 mobile policemen have fallen to the bullets of armed men suspected to be bandits in Kwaringanua village in Safi local government area. They also abducted 12 locals in Musawa, a neighboring village. And according to a source, the police officers were killed during a gun battle with the bandits, which lasted for several hours. The gunmen had attempted to invade Kwarenganua village Sunday night in reprisal against residents for allegedly rustling their cattle a few weeks ago. The incident comes after no fewer than 10 soldiers and 68 locals were killed on Sunday night in Mutunji village of Dansadao Emirate in Maru local government area of Zamfara State. The soldiers who were keeping peace in the area were ambushed by the attackers while on the way to repel an attack on Mutunji village. Some of the soldiers and locals sustained gunshot wounds, while others were mashed by the attackers. More than 40 injured persons are currently receiving treatment at the Dansadao General Hospital and Yerimang Bakura Specialist Hospital in the state. In the nation's capital, there was a peaceful protest on the streets of Abuja against the alleged discovery of a suit secretly fired by the State Security Service, accusing the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, of terrorism financing and other charges he described as economic crimes of national security dimension. The protesters marched to the office of the Attorney General of the Federation, where they submitted a petition against the action of the SSS. They also submitted a similar letter to the Office of the President, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Inspector General of Police, among others. The groups, which rose from a press conference before they embarked on their march, alleged that there is a plot to remove the CBN governor for political and pecuniary reasons.
We have come here simply to deliver our letter to the Attorney General of the Federation, to tell him, exercise your constitutional powers to take over, continue or discontinue any proceeding, any criminal or civil proceeding against or the federal government of Nigeria. The Attorney General should rise up and defend the Constitution of Nigeria by taking over this secretly filed proceeding and discontinue it against the CBN governor. to submit our letter of complaint and a petition for thorough investigation. I call for thorough investigation into the activities of the Director General of the State Security Service, and also investigate the allegations that the Central Bank Governor is a terrorist.
Let's turn our attention to the court, where the Director General of the Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council, Doyin Okupe, on Monday paid a 13 million naira fine after a money laundering conviction. Mr. Okupe was found guilty of receiving over 200 million naira cash from former National Security Advisor Sambo Dasuki by Justice Ijoma Ojukwu. The court sentenced the former aide to 2 years imprisonment with an option of 13 million naira fine. Judiciary correspondent Celestina Ira reports.
The Money Laundering Prohibition Act provides that no individual or organization shall receive any sum above 5 million naira and 10 million naira respectively without passing through a financial institution. Justice Ojukwu held that there is no evidence that the money received by Mr. Okupe passed through any financial institution. She also noted that the NSA was not a financial institution, and even if the president said to have authorized the funds, he did not say the money should be paid in cash.